was looking for a kind of serial adventure hero, and I wanted to do something that was very action-packed, and I came up with the idea of Indiana Jones, and at the same time, I came up with the idea of doing Star Wars. After Star Wars, I was on the beach with Steven, and he was talking to me about how he wanted to do a James Bond movie.
And George said, well, don't waste your time because I've got something better than that. And he said, this is better than Bond. It's called Raiders of the Lost Ark. So we had the title all worked out. And he told me the story, and it wasn't a fleshed out story. It was kind of a concept of this archaeologist guy, this adventurer, goes around the world looking for antiquities at great personal risk. And the antiquities might seem not to be that valuable, but they turn out to be, you know, things that either save the world or save the human race. And he began telling me the story about this character, and I became completely compelled by that and pretty much signed on to do the first one and wound up doing all three. The character of Indiana Jones was something that I had worked very hard on, and I didn't want to be safe with him. I didn't want him to be Dudley Do-Right with the perfect teeth, you know, the little twinkle of, you know, cinema magic when he smiles and the sun catches his mouth in a certain way.
When Steve and I started Indiana Jones, I wanted to have a fresh face to play the character, so he wasn't identified with any other kind of project or a movie star or anything. I wanted to have somebody who would be the character of Indiana Jones.
George and I both wanted Tom Selleck. He actually came in and tested and did a wonderful test. So we went ahead and hired Tom, and then CBS stepped in and said, wait, we have a contract with Tom Selleck to do a movie, a TV series that hasn't aired yet called Magnum P.I., and we're going to exercise that contract. So CBS actually blocked our efforts to put him in our movie, and they gave him Magnum P.I., which was a great thing for Tom. So Tom achieved, and then we were lucky later on down the line with Harrison.
I got a call one morning from George Lucas, who asked me to go over and meet Steven Spielberg regarding a film that he and Steven had developed together. I went over and met Steven. We spoke for maybe an hour or so. I left, then I got a phone call that they wanted me to do it.
And he was perfect for the part. I can't imagine anybody else in that part.
Chamber 3 was undisturbed, and the undisturbed chamber and the grave goods that were found in the area give us a...
Indiana Jones is a school teacher and an archaeologist and an adventurer. The fact that he behaves heroically under certain circumstances is a part of his nature, but it is not a descriptor of his character.
An archaeologist who, on one hand, was kind of a treasure hunter, but on the other hand had some values that were tested. And I wanted, one of the center pieces was that he would get involved in these treasure hunts that were of mystical objects.
George, of course, you know, is a professor himself in all sorts of mythology. And so George brought every aspect of the supernatural and the occult to the Indiana Jones series.
That was really the primary plot thrust of all these movies, was that he would be involved in some supernatural treasure hunt.
It makes the movies a little more special, you know. It's not just, you know, the practical hero who has to know how to engineer a mine so it doesn't cave in on him when he's digging for his antiquity. Harrison was very tenacious about wanting to be seen on camera. As Indiana Jones, being a hero and being an action figure, not just being a guy, you know, in a close-up who takes the whip and goes like this, and in the long shot, you cut to a stuntman swinging across a chasm.
I try to do as much as I can because I think it's important for the audience to have continuity with the character in these physical moments.
Harrison is very game for doing his own stunts, and obviously we can't put an actor in a situation where he could possibly be injured. So we were very careful to make sure that he didn't get hurt.
Here we go! Get ready!
Indiana Jones is going out!
Well, I like Karen Allen because she was real spunky. And I had seen her in Animal House a couple of years before. And Karen was really spunky in that, and she had a devilish kind of smile. And Harrison had the same kind of smile. And I said, why don't we put two demons together, these two people who have a little demonic twinkle in their eyes.
Will Jones, least you haven't forgotten how to show a lady a good time.
Boy, you're something!
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Until I get back my $5,000, you're gonna get more than you bargained for. I'm your goddamn partner!
Karen was terrific. She had a great point of view, which was very consistent with her character. She was tough, like Marion, direct, like Marion. I thought she was terrific in the part, and I really enjoyed working with her.
Well, I have to be going now, Renee. Perhaps we'll meet someday under better circumstances.
We meet again, Fräulein.
We have Nazis in the first film and the third film, and it really comes out of the period in which this was done.
Well, the Nazis are the personification of evil, you know, and that was an idea that was very, very early in George's thinking.
Part of the original idea of putting it in the 30s and everything was that Hitler was also very interested in supernatural artifacts.
I think Hitler felt that if he could possess all the power of the unknown, he would be omnipotent.
So if you have an archaeologist that's going after supernatural artifacts and you know that Hitler is doing the same thing, it gives you a ready antagonist who everybody understands and who everybody understands is very deadly.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I think the issue of snakes comes out of, as we went through putting segments together, we said, oh, well, he'll fall down into a snake pit because that's what heroes do.
Because I like snakes. I'm not really that afraid of snakes, but I know people are afraid of snakes. And I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if Indiana Jones, you know, is like in this room with 2,000 snakes?
I have no personal revulsion for snakes. It was just fun, interesting.
Unfortunately, when we did bring 2,000 snakes to a beautiful Norman Reynolds set, The Well of the Souls, incredible set, you know, tremendous statues and a lot of area. 2,000 snakes, basically, you can put it in one corner and you could have an empty floor. So we had a lot of rubber mechanical snakes, but the problem is, you know, they put like 40 rubber snakes, you know, on all linked together on one wire. So it was like 40 snakes doing a kind of, you know, syncopated June Taylor dance at the same time, and that didn't work. So one day I just said, well, can we get 7,000 to 10,000 snakes in here tomorrow? They went to every single gardening shop, you know, in Greater London, and the next day brought in 7,000 snakes to augment the already 2,000 live snakes and about 3,000 mechanical snakes that I basically threw out. And then the floor was covered in snakes. It was pretty amazing to try to, you know, pick your way through, just to get to the camera, to pick your way through the snakes.
We had some that bit and weren't poisonous, and we had, of course, a cobra.
And those were done under close supervision. We had glass between the crew, the actors, and the cobra and their handlers.
The scene that inspired me on Raiders and where I really started Raiders was the scene, the truck chase. And the idea of a guy jumping off his horse onto a truck was an image that I remember from when I was a young boy watching serials, because they seemed to do it in every episode. And so for me, that's still my favorite scene, I think.
I love the moment where the monkey goes Heil Hitler. You know, I think that's nuts. That's just so nuts. That was George's idea, by the way. You know, take somebody like George come up with a nutty idea like that. It was my favorite moments in the picture. I like the whole scene where the ball chases Harrison, the big boulder chasing him down the path. I like Harrison's scene with Marion, the love scene, where there's no place she can kiss him that doesn't hurt, until he starts pointing out areas that don't hurt, and it kind of gets into a love scene, and just when you think they're going to really go for it, he falls asleep. And she says,
We never seem to get a break, do we?
Raiders is an interesting film because most of the films I've made, I've had no idea whether people were going to relate to them or not.
I thought we were making an entertaining film that might well be successful.
Unlike Jaws, where the audience loved and they screamed a whole bunch of times, this movie, the audience never shut up. They just started, at the beginning, they began to applaud and laugh and scream and titter and talk with each other and talk at the screen, and it was like an event.
I was so convinced was a crowd pleaser that people were going to love this movie because it had so many fun things in it.
I don't know, it was just maybe the right time for a film like that to come along. Maybe we were nostalgic and looking to go back to an old-fashioned popcorn B-movie. And all Raiders was, and any of the Indiana films have been, are B-movies. And that's all we intended them to be.
We made 3 pretty good movies.